All right, it's 9 a.m. We'll begin. Welcome everyone to our final Media Over QUIC virtual interim before we meet in person in Montreal in about 2 weeks. As always, the session is being recorded. This is the IETF Note Well. It discusses the intellectual property implications of you participating, as well as going over the code of conduct. If you're not familiar with these documents, most of you are familiar with them, but if you're not familiar with them, please enter some of these keywords into your favorite search engine and read up on how to behave as an IETF participant. As usual for these MeetEcho meetings, for these virtual meetings, we're using MeetEcho. If you wish to speak, please use the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you don't want to clog up the queue, you can put messages in the chat, and that's the text bubble or speech bubble button up at the top of your screen. And of course, you can also raise your hands for various. You can also raise your hand for various shows of hands. We're going to use that through MeetEcho. Please turn off your audio and video unless you are speaking. Be aware that there's about a 1 second delay when you unmute, so unmute yourself a little bit before you plan to talk. And if you're in a back and forth, you just leave your microphone on. If you do leave your microphone on, please be sure to use headphones. The echo cancellation is not great on this tool. So headphones would be very helpful to avoid all sorts of echo effects. And if you can't do that, if you don't have headphones, we're going to end up muting you, and then it's going to get complicated. So please find a headset if you're going to talk. We need a scribe for today. Again, the purpose of a scribe is to record key decisions. There is a recording of this meeting. As I mentioned earlier, there's no need to have a verbatim record of what was said. The point is quick reference. A transcript is in fact worse because it makes it harder for people who are not here to skim what happened. Okay, I'm going to pick one poor victim out of the very shortly if nobody steps up.
I'll try. If I haven't done it in a little while, so you have to tell me where to go, and someone should review whatever I do.
We always review it. Thank you. There's a little
pencil at the
top of your screen.
Yeah.
A little pencil with a square. That's where you can record it. Thank you, Giovanni.
Talk slowly.
Well, again, there's no need to record a transcript of what we said today. Just the key decisions, and a very high level view of what happened today. Okay. Here's some upcoming deadlines for our working group. We already expired the call for consensus on draft 14. So hopefully you reviewed the diff between draft 14 and earlier drafts and have filed issues, but anything you're concerned about. If we see new issues on stuff that was decided in draft 14, the chairs are applying a somewhat higher bar to being willing to treat those issues. There are actually 3 deadlines that are today. Number 1, we have a request for comment on the Boulder hybrid interim, which I believe is the second week of February in Boulder, Colorado. If you have any comments on that, if you could find the email on the list, and if you have any comments on venue, location, time, today would be the time to share those concerns. I believe we've confirmed a venue, which would be the Google office in Boulder. Expect an email tomorrow or around probably tomorrow with further details about that. Okay, the two other deadlines relate to the IETF 124 meeting in Montreal next month. Number one, today is the deadline for agenda requests to the chairs. So if you would like agenda time, please email us today. It is also the draft deadline. If you want to present about something that is not an existing draft, it would be a very good idea to submit a draft to be considered. Of course, we will accept in some cases late agenda requests. In particular, if somebody puts something in the agenda and you have a lot to say about it, you would like to present slides, Magnus and I will almost certainly accept those sorts of piggyback agenda requests. Completely new topics we might be a little more reluctant to accept. So please do, if you do know you want to speak in Montreal, please email us today. And then finally, yesterday I sent an email proposing virtual interim dates between IETF 124 and IETF 125. There's obviously a few weeks we skipped over around the Boulder meeting and so on. Anyway, those are all Mondays. Basically, this time Mondays at 10 a.m. PT. 9 a.m. PT. If you have any concerns about those dates or the time or anything else, please email the chairs. Any questions about all of this? Alan?
This is about Montreal agenda items, which is, I have a request for somebody else who I don't know to present some things. I'm wondering if we have found any volunteers who would like to present on ABR or on ad insertion. And if not, can the chairs assign someone to do that? Because I would really like to see those topics get time upcoming.
I'm working with you to find to co-work on slides for ABR, not for ad insertion. Although I can find those links, but I can definitely get the ABR fixed.
Martin, you are causing quite a lot of echo for the moment.
Yeah,
Their TLDR was designed for client-side ABR, not server-side ABR, but no one uses client-side ABR anymore. But I guess that's fine for now. But I'll make sure we actually get real slides. But I don't think it'll be long. So I think it'd actually be really helpful for at least 2 people to present on ABR.
Regarding ad insertion, even if you don't have a solution, I think somebody who is willing to present at least a concise statement of the problem that, in MOQ terms, that would be wonderful. If we can't have anyone even articulate a problem, I think we're just going to close the issue and not address it and assume that it's solved by the rest of the protocol.
I can at least make a baseline pass at ABR if nobody else wants to do it. Or add insertion, sorry.
Lovely. Please just send us an email asking for some amount of time. Thank you, Mike. Will?
Yeah, and I've taken a stab at ad insertion. At least I have an issue. I've put up diagrams about potential workflows. So I could put some high-level slides together to try to get more discussion on the subject for ad insertion.
Lovely. Thank you. This is today's agenda. Would anyone like to bash it? Alan sent this out a little later than we would like, but he did it. Thank you, Alan. Mike just asked you a question online whether the deadline is now, so to speak, now, forever hold your peace. No, our general practice is the 20th of October anywhere in the world. So Magnus are going to take a look at this tomorrow morning. So if it's in our inboxes by tomorrow morning, you're good. So you have the rest of the day, specific, about 24 hours or so to get it in.
So just for today's agenda, I don't anticipate. Oh, you got to mute, Martin. Just for today's agenda, I don't think this will take all the time that we have. So if somebody has another issue, I think I might grab a couple of other small issues just while we have people on, just to grab some input, which may not be the highest priority issues, but for me, it's just better to close them quickly. So I may throw some of that on the end. If somebody has an issue they would really like to talk about, please say something now so we can, I think there's time today. Otherwise, I think we'll end a little early, and the editors and authors will wrap up all the open PRs we need to for the draft deadline today.
Okay, Alan, I think it's off to you now. I'm going to get some headphones and follow my own advice. Alan, off to you.
Okay, let me request a screen share. Which, now that Martin disappeared, maybe Magnus has to approve. Yes, I want to screen share.
Yeah, you approved.
Hold on. I'm going to not screw this up as badly as I did last time. Okay. Okay, you guys can see this? Okay, looks like you can.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So I just mostly wanted to just surface these issues, and I don't necessarily have concrete solutions proposed for any of them, but just wanted to like boot into people's minds, like what's going on with subscribe namespace. If people have other issues they want to raise, or if people want to offer suggestions for solutions, like I just wanted to like bring these to everybody's attention. So one that came in recently, there's no way for the publisher to cancel a subscribe namespace, which is different from all our other sort of request or subscription life cycles. So if you have a request, either a subscription that started via subscriber publish can be canceled by the publisher using publish done. Fetches can be the publisher can either fetch error if it doesn't like the request, or it can reset the data stream, or both. And publish namespace has a publish namespace done if the publisher is not doing that. But for subscribe namespace, there's no way to say like, yeah, I don't like you anymore. Your auth has expired. You need to resubscribe. Like all of those are sort of missing. So, I mean, I think there's sort of a simple way to solve this, which is we just add another message that does it. But I don't know if anybody wants to comment right now. Let me make this smaller so I can see the queue if there's one. Okay. I don't see the queue. Nobody wants to say anything. Okay. I will roll on to other issues. This is an old issue because it still talks about announce and subscribe announces, but you can imagine.
Ian.
Oh.
Ian, on the first one, it feels like we should definitely solve that. I mean, is it unreasonable to just add a subscribe namespace done? I don't know.
It's not unreasonable. Like it's perfectly reasonable given the rest of the model that we have. But I guess I wanted to also just like surface all the issues.
Yeah, sure.
And which not to say that your comments unwelcome now, but just wanted, like, I'm presenting all the issues together because if we take them each in isolation, I think it's pretty obvious. Like, oh yeah, we'll just add another message here.
Sure. Yep. Okay. Yep. Sounds good.
Lala.
I'm here attending the meeting. I just want to let you guys know I'm here attending the meeting.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Your attendance is automatically recorded just by joining. So thanks.
Okay. Huh?
Okay. I will roll on. Okay. So announce versus subscribe announces. Sorry. Publish namespace versus subscribe namespaces versus. Okay. The problem here is that when you send a subscribe namespace, you're soliciting all the published namespaces at the publisher and all the published tracks at the publisher. And the way that the mechanism is currently defined is that the way that those arrive is identical to if the publisher sent them to you unsolicited. And that creates some sort of weirdnesses. One of them is that, like, according to our state model, like every single one of those published namespaces needs to be responded to in the control channel with an okay or an error in order to sort of complete. And there could be, there could be a lot of them. And it's also not clear to know, like, all right, when you sent your subscribe namespace, there were 10 namespaces there, and here are those 10. And then that's done. And now when you're getting new ones, those are ones that are being newly created. I don't know if that is a big problem, but like right now that's sort of buried, and there's not necessarily a way to tell whether a published namespace was solicited or unsolicited. So let me, and also just like pause, Colin.
Well, I was just going to say, is there any sort of like, is there any use case where we actually need this? Like, I'm sort of hesitant. I mean, I don't really care one way or another, but I'm sort of hesitant to try and solve this problem unless we think we need to say it. The use cases, I think it doesn't really matter whether it existed before or just existed now. It doesn't make much difference. So if somebody has a use case, then let's do it. But if not, maybe we don't need to do this.
Okay, you're referring to the second bullet specifically about whether the difference between ones that are currently established and ones that are new.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm not. I think I agree. I'm like a little bit less concerned. Oh, I got a cue. Less concerned about that. I think the issue, if you read it as filed, is more about the first problem, which is like, do I really need to okay all of the things that come in via? Like I just asked for all of them. Do I really need to okay them individually? And Victor was only filed, so and I see he's in the queue, so you can clarify.
Giovanni, is that a scribe interrupt?
Yes, it is.
Go ahead.
I'm losing, things are not in order, so I'm losing which issue we're talking about. It might be good to mention the issue.
Oh, the issue, can you not see the slides? It's on, we're talking about issue 843. And it's on slide 2 in my presentation. Although my slides does not have slide numbers.
I didn't see you were talking about subscribe namespace, publish namespace.
Oh, that's because we renamed announce and subscribe announces to publish namespace and subscribe namespace after this issue was filed. And I didn't want to change it in the slide. So anyway, sorry about that. Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I want to say Luke's approach to this was to always send the subscribe namespace, so you never have such a thing as an unsolicited published namespace. And I think that has some merit, like, because a relay could just like when you attach, you could just have a broad subscribe namespace, like a wildcard subscribe namespace, something that effectively is, matches all.
Okay, so that's the one use case that I can think of for what I would call unsolicited published namespace, which is like a client publisher connects to a relay. And of course, the relay has no idea what that client publisher would like, where they belong. Maybe it does based on client certificates or something, but like for the most part, it doesn't know what they want to do. But I hear what you're saying. It could issue a subscribe namespace star. Like I will accept, if you want to tell me what you're doing, I will accept you to tell me. Martin points out we do not have a global subscribe namespace because the track namespace prefix has to have at least one element.
Right. I did notice that in the current draft.
Okay.
So yeah, we would need to address that in order to take that approach.
That is fixable. It also, I don't know if it impacts latency for client publishers that like they can't announce their namespace until the relay asks. So I don't know if people care about that.
It could be pipelined with the server setup or something, but yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, Victor?
Yeah, so I just noticed this is publish namespace, but I think this also applies to publish even more than publish namespace. Let me try to explain the issue I have here. The issue I have here is assume you subscribe to a namespace, and the namespace is quite large, but reasonable enough that you'd want to subscribe it, like a video conference with 1,000 people. You subscribe to that, and now you get 1,000 published messages in the control stream. And I really hope you've provided enough flow control window, both in terms of request IDs and stream to do that. And the other problem is, of course, this is all happening on the control channel. So while you're sending and processing the 1,000 of control messages, if you want to subscribe to something different or do anything, you're kind of out of luck until you deal with the 1,000 messages. And it is not entirely clear to me whether this is this actually works and will not like explode in terrible ways when you try that with large conferences.
Just with respect to what you said about So I think you're right in that this issue was filed before publish was created, but now that we have publish, it has a number of the same problems. Although I'm not sure if you want to weigh in on, for example, is the sending OK and error, like, I think the symmetry was intentional when we wrote subscribe namespace, that you would have to, for example, acknowledge all of the response. Like, I get a publish, I need to send OK or error to that publish in order for our subscription state machine to be complete. But it's unclear. Are you suggesting that you want some sort of different mechanism for acknowledging?
Okay, so let me clarify what I think, like, what we should do and what's like the root problem here. There are two mechanisms that we're trying to solve here. One problem is that what originally subscribe namespace was like a discovery mechanism. That is to say, I want to know what tracks exist in that namespace, but I don't necessarily care about I don't necessarily want to immediately subscribe to them. And like, if there's 1,000 of them, I'm probably not subscribing to all of them. And in that case, there are also like, ideally, I would move like those announces or whatever to like a separate stream where those can be flow controlled, and you even know which subscribe namespace you're getting reply to. The other problem is like, I want to subscribe to the like active speakers in a conference, and that's what we currently solve with subscribe namespace. But that like something that would have a top N filter or something, because you never want to subscribe to 1,000 people in the namespace. Like, that's just not like necessarily an operation, unless it's like a namespace where everyone publishes like once every minute.
Okay, I think I hear what you're saying. I will note that in the editor's copy, we do have this. When you subscribe namespace, there's now a forward flag there, which when you set to 0 is sort of discovery mode, in that it means that if any publishes come, the publishes come with forward 0. But at least according to the way our subscription state machine is defined, it still requires a publish OK, publish error, and it still...
Yeah. The thing I'm trying, and like even before that was the case with announce. You had to announce okay, and like the original reason I filed this issue is like, if this is a discovery mechanism, I don't need to send you an announce okay, because like, yeah, you told me that this exists. There's no need for me to do anything.
Okay, thanks for the clarification, Ian.
I think Victor said most of what I was going to say, but yeah, I do think these two feel like two separate use cases, and sending a bunch of extra control messages when we already have a billion control messages going back and forth, like, seems pretty painful. In particular, using up request ID space on all of the published namespace messages in response to a subscribe announces feels very different from using, a single request ID to like use it for an unsolicited announce. So also, there's a bunch of wire format optimizations we could make if we made them kind of be somewhat different things. And so, like, such as excluding the prefix of the subscription of the subscribe announces is the obvious one that I know Luke implemented. I'm not sure if I want to go as far as like getting like just saying you have to wildcard subscribe to when you connect. I think I'm okay with the current mechanism actually explicitly specifying a prefix. I think I'd rather probably stick with that for now. I think Mike kind of said, like, why don't we just wildcard subscribe to everything you're connecting to? But I think the optimization for like the prefix part is a worthwhile one, and getting rid of request IDs would be very welcome.
I think but there's a separate use case for subscribe namespace, which is like with forward 1, which means, no, I actually want you to send me the track data now too. Like, I really want you to establish subscriptions with me, and I want you to start sending track data even before I okay the subscriptions. Do we still think, I mean, it sounds like we have two different use cases here. I don't know, what do people want to do about that? Because I guess I hear the, like, there might be 1,000 tracks there, and I just want to know what they are. But I almost wondering, like, maybe is your application need a catalog, like, instead? of trying to do this with this mechanism, or are we trying to create two mock T mechanisms here? Luke?
Hi. So, my microphone working? Yeah. So the main reason I ended up adding subscribe announces and with Alan is really for the server. So I think the biggest problem with the unsolicited announce is that clients can send it. Like if you're a publisher, it makes sense to send like an announce or a publish, whatever. But if you're a relay, it almost never makes sense just to push stuff. You don't know what the client wants. You don't know if maybe they're a publisher. Like, are you going to send them all these tracks and they actually don't want them? So a lot of the point of making subscribe namespace was just make it so you have to solicit stuff. You have to show your intent. The one thing I've run into with these actually number one is subscribe namespace as it exists right now implicitly is a subscribe namespace okay for every single response, which is not always great because now like if there's a collision or something, you just can never return an error. You have to accept every announce. So you say subscribe namespace star, that means you've kind of like, you will accept every announce at that point or every publish at that point, which feels like that's also part of a problem. So I would almost say like with subscribe namespace, maybe it's okay to actually have an explicit okay message for every single one you receive to make it more like the unsolicited use case. But yeah, I just don't like the unsolicited announces. It very much assumes that it's a client publishing. Like it just doesn't make any sense for a relay. And like what Mike said, if you flight the subscribe announces or subscribe namespace, whatever the name we were calling, with the server setup, then it doesn't actually add a round trip.
Okay. Thanks. Who's next? Mo.
Yeah, this is what I was trying to get at in Toronto when I was trying to explain that we have these different use cases of name discovery and subscriptions, and I think we've conflated things. We thought that the symmetry sounded good to turn things like announce into subscribe namespace and publish namespace, but really the use cases are totally different. And if we sat down and wrote out what you want out of each use case, I think we end up with different kinds of behaviors. You end up with different control plane and data plane behavior. So I think maybe it was a mistake to fall into the symmetry trap and club all these things together when really we should have a focused effort just on name discovery. And I would also argue there's three things. There's name discovery, and there's the original thing that announce was, which had nothing to do with name discovery. It was authorization. It was saying, I want to see, am I authorized to publish for this name? So that's a client publisher connecting through a relay network to some authority that says, okay, yes, you really are allowed. I give you a token that you are allowed to publish under this name. And that's totally different from the subscribers trying to discover the names that exist in a namespace. That's totally different from wanting to actively establish a subscription to a bunch of things in a namespace. I think we need to sit down and write those three use cases out and figure out what real control and data plane messages should result, and then decide if that can be combined into fewer messages, or should split them out into separate messages.
Okay, thanks. Suha?
Probably reiterating some of the other points that Victor and Mo made. I feel like we had the problem of needing to have catalog in the solution versus not having catalog. That's where discovering various namespaces was important. That if you know the namespaces, then you can go and subscribe to those namespaces. So I see this as like two clear problems, which is like, I want to discover what are the published namespace available so that a publisher might have 10 tracks, does not matter, but I know like Alan is publishing on this media session. I want to know about that. Two ways to do it, right? One, if you have catalog, that's easy. If you don't have catalog, you need a MOQ mechanism to distribute that. That was what I thought announce was supposed to be, where every publisher announces their namespace. And subscribe namespace with what we have today with forward equal to 1 is what is important, where you don't want every subscriber to do another round trip to set up them to have the media flow. That's what is basically slows down, and also adds a lot of signaling churn today in today's setup in like large conferences, where like going back to Victor's proposal of, we have a listen namespace or discover namespace, which is basically what we had originally announced, and having a subscribe namespace with the functionality of forward equal to 1 would be what something like active speaker switching on those kind of use cases would really benefit from, especially when you scale the conferences for more than 100 people. So I think having, if you want to really change, I would say something like listen namespace or discover namespace would be one, and having the subscribe namespace with a forward is called 1 or 0 option would be a nice way to address most of the use cases that we have today.
Okay, so I both Victor and Joseph have sort of thrown out something, but to me, it's which is listen or discover namespace. So I just want to make sure, I'm going to try to articulate a straw man here. Just you guys correct me and see if I have your concept right. So this is a message that has a unilateral response of just names of things, and when those names come back, and that does not create any additional state, and you do not need to acknowledge the receipt of these names or reject the receipt of those names. Is that maybe Victor or Suhas or somebody who has a concept? Is that the concept you are thinking of?
Yeah, I was not even thinking of the names. I was just thinking of the namespaces more in the picture there. But yeah, that was the idea, where you learn more about, and you don't have to spend your request IDs or anything that's important, like a track LSS, for example, right? Those things for just doing the discovery, and there's no media flowing. And the second one is where what we have equivalent to today, like subscribe namespace with forward equal to 1 or 0 would actually set up the subscriptions and let the data flow through as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about what I thought too.
I see. So and I'll get to the queue in a second, but you're suggesting that we sort of, the existing mechanism we leave in place, but we create this new mechanism.
Right. The existing mechanism has to be updated to not have subscribe namespace also do the namespace discovery.
So subscribe namespace would only solicit publish but not publish namespace? Yes.
That way the namespace discovery will be its own message, which does not set up any state other than letting know where catalogless or those kind of scenarios where you want to understand where each publisher is. And the subscribe namespace will remove that part of which from the spec, and rest can stay as it is.
Okay, I think I understand what you're saying. Lella?
Basically, the interest in the distinction between actively subscribing to a namespace and establishing a subscription to a bunch of things within that namespace, and to explore those use cases more robustly, it must be useful to consider whether the distinction relates to the type of notification you've received and the level of control you have over managing the subscribed items, or if the difference in the way those subscriptions are handled on each data plane.
Okay, yes, I think that dovetails with what other folks are saying. Luke?
I'm just gonna add one more thing, but I don't know how helpful this will be. The way that I conceptually see subscribe namespaces now is actually more of a signal saying you are the origin for this namespace. So like a relay tells you are the origin for foo / room 123 / Alice. And it's an authoritative message that says like anything you publish on this namespace, within this prefix will be available. So it does create state, at least in my implementation. It's very explicit that you are now this origin, you own it. And if the relay ever comes back and, somebody else connects, let's say your client reconnects, you lose network connection or whatever, or you open a second browser window, it's explicitly canceled. It's not about discovery so much as about, authoritative, you are now online, right? So I'm treating it more like a signal to like OBS to say like, OBS, you are now this client. Like you now can serve anything out of this prefix. And I think that might be a better way of thinking about it. It does create state. It's not just gossiping text tracks that have like no impact on the actual application. I think the application this should be surfaced and should mean something. And that's also why you need a way of saying no. You need a way of canceling it. And it actually meaning something when you cancel a subscribe namespace. Currently, it means nothing. Like if a relay says like cancel subscribe namespace, the client that received it, it just says okay. It doesn't mean anything. But it really does help as treating it like you are an origin. I think has been very, very helpful for me.
Okay, Mo.
I agree with the discover names approach that Victor and Suhas were describing, and that's what I was trying to describe in Toronto. And I think it should not just be namespaces; it should also be names. Some people have a conception of the namespace name hierarchy one way, and some people have the conception of it a different way. So the individual publishers may be names in a namespace, or the individual publishers may be their own namespaces with a bunch of tracks that are different names. So I think for name discovery, we should also allow the ability to discover names within a namespace, not just namespaces within another namespace. And so that conflates the current publish, which is both, I want to send you my data and I'm announcing my name.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I think what you're saying is what other people have said, and I think it was in my refined concept of the straw man, which is that when you issue this new message, you're getting names and namespace information.
Yes.
The message that we currently have, we should not include namespace information. It should basically be repurposed to be only effectively wildcard subscribe. Meaning I only want track. This will establish tracks. I will not.
One will establish subscriptions. Yes. I think we should have a word that says everything that starts with subscribe should be talking about actual subscription state where you're going to get actual objects in the data plane. I think that would be clear. I think that'd be less confusing for developers to understand that subscribe means I'm going to actually get data. I'm going to get real data coming in. And I would say publish should also be the same thing. Publish should mean I'm going to actually send real data. We should not publish a name. We should not subscribe a name. That's name discovery and name announcement. I think those words are better and clearer than trying to conflate them with subscriptions.
Okay, I'm sure we'll get good names by the time we figure out what we're actually doing. But all right, but at least in terms of, I think I understand at least the important bits about one thing is getting subscriptions and one thing gets names of tracks and names of namespaces.
That's right.
I don't know. Do you have any? So like Luke made a point, which is like, no, it's when you're getting those namespaces, it's not just informational, like it's creating effectively routing state. Like
that's a totally different thing. So the original announce was exactly that. The original announce had nothing to do with discovery of anything. The original announce was to ask for authorization from an origin to get a token back that says, yeah, okay, I'm valid for this, and the relay network then established that authorization and cache that token. But we've somehow conflated that original use case with also the subscriber's case of I want to discover the names in this namespace, or I want to discover namespaces in general, and that's not establishing, I don't think, state. I don't think that's establishing anything. That's not making you an authority for anything. The original announcement is the way flow is the things that established state and created authorities for things, that these are the actual authorized publishers for this namespace. I think Luke is right that does give some state, because the relay network has to know whether or not to allow this publisher to publish or not.
This reminds me of a separate issue, which is not on my slides, but it's about the fact that if a subscriber gets effectively an announce, does it include an authorization token, and what the heck is the subscriber supposed to do with it? Because oftentimes that's not how, like, subscribers, how is the subscriber supposed to verify whatever token may be included there?
Yeah, I think that again shows how we tried to reuse things that sounded similar, but really had totally different use cases. That shows the error in that. The original announcement flow that was based on establishing authorization and establishing that in the relay network and establishing state there, that has nothing to do with the subscriber wanting to get the data. And so what comes down from the relay network down to that subscriber that wanted to do name discovery, he shouldn't even get that message if it's not authorized, right? So the fact that it came from the relay network in the first place means it was already authorized, and so you don't need to put the authorization data inside of that announcement.
Okay, I'm gonna maybe like during the after Suhas, I have a couple more slides about different issues which are also in this same general domain. So I will after Suhas I want to like present those other slides and then we can discuss as much as we want over everything. So Lala.
So basically, I was thinking like the data plan is also like porting with the other data plan of the user plan. It's part of the network architecture or distribution that is responsible for the actual and processing the user data. It is the control plan, which is the data plan versus the control plan. And then with all the aspects, the primary function, the action, the traffic type, and the location. And those come on with all the key functions of the data plan. That should be packet processing, traffic movement, filtering and security, encapsulation, decapsulation, and all the base FIB on the switching table of the control plan. So if they download a control plan with the platform database, and then it should cover all the fields in all those aspects of the forwarding plan and the control plan in the model networking. On the routers, the switches, and the softwares defined in networking. On the SDN.
Okay,
And then it comes with the fundamental role of the data plan in speed and efficiency in getting data from all the sources to its destinations.
Okay, thanks.
That's
I
all.
think oh, yes.
So it's just like the data plan to it's part of the network architecture to distribute within the system, to have actual movement to process the muscle and the control plan.
Okay, thanks.
It's a fundamental role.
So Alan, I think you can move on.
Yeah, Suhas.
Okay.
I think, Karen, your conclusion is right. I just wanted to confirm on that one, and I agree with Luke. The point I think where I was when I was trying to talk about the state, I was talking about on subscribe namespaces, but on the published namespace or the announce, that's definitely setting up authoritative relay where if a subscribe comes eventually to route the subscribe to. So the published namespace / announce that we call now still establishes some kind of origin and subscribe namespaces with where we remove the discovery part out of it. We'll do the established subscriptions, and a new message would help discover the namespaces and names. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Let me just present the other two issues, then we can circle back and have more discussion. Okay. Maybe we've already touched on some of this. So publish namespace is a control message, but doesn't change subscription state and blocks other control messages. So I think we talked about this a little bit already, but like when you send subscribe namespace, you could get an awful lot of a lot of information back, and it can block the entire control channel, and it can consume all of your request IDs. But I think if we're moving to a world where we take publish namespace is no longer something that comes back to subscribe namespace, or subscribe to namespace becomes more like wildcard subscribe, and then you're really you're essentially never getting, as a client, you're never getting publish namespace anymore. You're only just getting this sort of track discovery information. So that probably doesn't have request IDs or I mean, it's going to have a different delivery model. So, okay, so keep that one in mind. And there's no way to indicate that publishes from subscribe namespace were blocked. So if you grant like 10 request IDs and you issue a subscribed namespace that has 20 subscriptions, you'll only get 10. And there's no indication that you could get more if you granted more IDs. Now they're like, so I mean, there's sort of an intersection with the discovery problem here, but I don't think it's exclusive, because I think there could be a world where it has nothing to do with namespaces. It's just total tracks. So anyway, that's another thing to think about. And then I threw this in here because it's related, but we've already talked about it, which is like, there's something going on here with request IDs and long-lived state and how we manage it, but that issue is currently parked. So those are all the things in my deck. So I don't know if we want to go back and talk about, you just keep those things in mind as you continue the discussion, I guess, or maybe we're coming close. Mo?
One thing that may help is, the design team for the filters is creating a max tracks selected filter, and that's specifically for being able to control how many tracks you can get in a large namespace. Maybe we could also use that to rate limit if something is if a relay network doesn't want to forward tons and tons of publishes or real objects from a large namespace, from all the senders in a real namespace, the relay network can advertise its max track selected as a setup parameter. So we can say, you can't subscribe to more than 1,000 whatever names in a namespace, and subscribers can also do the same thing. They can rate limit their requests in a namespace to 10, 100, whatever they think is reasonable. So in these large meeting scenarios that Victor was talking about, maybe that mechanism is helpful both to protect the relay network and to rate limit from the client side. That wasn't the original design intent of that feature, but I could see that it could be used for rate limiting instead of just for selecting based on some metric in the object data plane.
I think that maybe the observation here is that if we add this new mechanism for listen, that essentially it's more like data than control plane, right? It's just telling me like, oh yeah, more tracks are available, whatever, more namespaces are available. This is coming in, and that can never be blocked on request IDs.
But I think if we do anything that can have a large unbounded volume of response, we have to have some way to rate limit that, right? So we're going to end up needing some, even if it's just name discovery. You can't do unbounded name discovery, right? I can't ask for, give me all the names in a giant namespace. We're going to want some mechanism both for the clients to not be flooded and for the relay network not to be DOSed by a single request generating, tons of traffic. So I think we're going to want something similar to that anyway. We're going to want rate limits at both the client side and the relay side for even something like name discovery, which doesn't have the request ID problem, but it has the general volume of data problem.
Okay. I mean, go ahead, Martin.
All right, so I'm going to close the queue pretty soon. I do need to take 5 minutes back at the end of the meeting, Alan. Do
we have 60 today or 90?
Oh, pardon me. Yes, go ahead. Good point. We have 90.
Okay. So I guess I envisioned probably this listen one having the response be in a data stream of some kind, so that you can use flow control. Their subscriber uses flow control. It's like, well, if the publisher is sending me like a megabyte worth of namespaces, like I can consume them at my leisure without blocking the control channel for other important stuff. That doesn't necessarily solve your relay DOS problem, but I think there's even already text, which is like, yeah, really, if clients can send subscribe, you need to use authorization to make sure that somebody doesn't send you a subscribed namespace that causes you to do more work than you're willing to do. I don't know if we need more than that. Do we need actual rate limits of some kind? I don't want to create lots of new mechanisms if we don't need to. Ian.
I just also wanted to mention that the OSPF, it's an open shortest path for the BGP.
Sorry.
There's a queue.
Yes, it's a queue, and I don't think you're very constructive in this meeting. So I sent you a message. Please read up on the draft, and you're welcome to return in future when you have read up and you're not just not talking beyond this topic we're discussing here.
Okay, Ian.
I wanted to ask about. I think we've gotten to a number of good issues. The original use case was a lot of it was around the original publisher, I believe, connecting to an ingestion network. Not entirely, but like that was one of the key thought processes. And the original flow was like the publisher was going to announce, and then the ingestion network was going to like subscribe to the thing that was announced. But now we just have publish, which has its own auth. I guess I would ask, like, is there really a use case for now that we just have published, like, and that has its own auth, and you can just like, you know, do ingestion? Like, do we need the standalone announce mechanism at all? And by standalone announce, I now mean published namespace. And then as a corollary, do we need parameters and in particular auth on published namespace when it's in response to a subscribed namespace? Because that's like a huge change in functionality. Like if you do not need params on published namespace in response to subscribed namespace, that is a very, very different beast that is much more, again, like data and less like control state to me. So I guess those are two questions for the group, because I'm not an expert on, so I'd like to hear from others about that.
Okay, Suhas.
On Ian's question of why announce was added, or probably why I think that might be helpful, is because a given publisher, let's say in a conference example, typically is that he might have more than one track at any point in time, and he or she would not want to publish all the tracks and create the state. So announce is basically saying, if you want to get all of Suhas's tracks, this is the where this is the relay is connected to. That it helps find the origin publisher for a namespace, and hence that's why I thought that was useful. And also on the general issue about if we have the subscribe namespace with forward equal to 1, would it consume a lot of request IDs? Yes. If you take a typical conference, even a larger conference where this will be really helpful, is with like 5,000 or 10,000 people or 100,000 people conference, their number of publishers is really small subset than number of subscribers. So we are in the use cases where it really matters, we are really not spending too much of request IDs. Yes, it might be in hundreds, it might not be in 1 or 2. Again, any real conference will not have 100,000 publishers at any one point in time, and I think we need to see if the request ID problem is really a problem or not for the use cases where it really matters.
Yeah, I mean, I think where this meeting seems to be headed is like, if we completely separate discovery from actual subscription, and we anticipate success from the design team allowing subscribers to give explicit limits on the amount of subscriptions they want from a particular like wildcard subscribe, that probably makes the issue described here not as critical. But anyway, go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, I would agree with that. To answer Ian's thing, like initially announce was just for routing. It basically says like you can route requests here. And that's what I use. Like when I have a publisher, it says I am going to serve this broadcast, like this is my name, but it doesn't actually send any video or audio data. It waits until the first viewer comes around. So I'm not actually publishing tracks. I'm just publishing the routing table, if that makes sense. So I've always seen as announce as a routing table. I've never seen it as actually track data. And I'm using it for also on the viewer side. So viewers learn about other broadcasters, like when you're in a conference call. You learn the routing table of everybody else in the meeting, effectively. And then you could choose if you want to subscribe to them. Like, let's say there's 1,000 people in a meeting, you could choose to subscribe to only a few of them. You're not, that's why I decouple it from tracks. I don't want to receive a fire hose of everything under that routing table. So I would definitely be in favor of going back to where it was decoupled, where announce was just a routing table, and didn't have this forward equals 1 where now you have to pull in like subscription state. And that was always the intent for subscribed namespaces, is just saying, I'm interested in the routing table that matches this prefix. And that's what I use it for. I use it pretty extensively. Even the relay nodes use it to gossip routing tables between themselves.
Colin.
I was coming to answer Ian's question too, and I think I'm saying just almost exactly a subset of what Luke just said. Of like, we still need we need some functionality that allows a client to say, for this namespace, make sure to route the subscribes to me. I mean, there needs to be, you know, some way that you know where to send these things at the relay network. So I think that's one of the many important use cases that we have to not lose on this.
So there's a question in the chat about, now that you can have publish with /0, do you still like having a message like publish namespace announce where you're not, let's say I have 2 tracks. I could just send 2 publishes /0 and it gives the relay the same routing information.
Well, I mean,
or I could send one publish namespace.
Okay, so if I can publish, let me call it a wildcard publish. If I can do a publish star /0, I mean, I don't even know what that means. I don't know how that works. It sounds really complicated. But the point of this is, remember, one of the use cases we were driving is like, I'm Netflix. I'm not going to publish the name of every single one of my catalog items. The things that somebody might be subscribing to might be generated on the fly. Like, you can request any resolution you want as part of the track name, right? So there's all these use cases where you have a large set of things that you could publish. You can't possibly send a publish message for every one of them. And so announce or publish, you need some way of saying things inside this namespace or in this range, I'm willing to publish, send them to me. That's all from these cases.
Okay, I think that help. Yes, it does. And it reminds me that I've authored a draft called mock test, which is exactly like you say, where the namespace fields actually cause the publisher to create tracks, right? Yeah. Like if you subscribe to something with, like you were using resolution as an example, it's like, oh, if you subscribe to video /360, like I will transcode and create a 360p version, but like I wouldn't going to tell you it was there unless you asked for it. So I think we do need this. I think publish namespace still is a valuable message for those kinds of reasons.
I think we still need to meet all those use cases. I think how we skin this cat or split it up could be different ways. But I just think that we have this urge to be like, oh, there's 2 similar messages here. We should combine those 2 things together to reduce that we don't have to write 2 parsers instead of 1. I mean, I don't think the number of parsers we have to write is the biggest problem in this working group or whatever, right? I think if the things make sense to semantically separate, we should, is all I'm trying to say. So anyway, I hope that helps answer back to Ian's question.
Yeah, no, I think the question Ian and others were asking was more about like, are we sure there's a use case, which I don't want to write 2 parsers, but I think, I think a use case has been articulated. So if someone disagrees, thinks the use case is invalid or does not understand, maybe now's a good time to jump in the queue and ask that question. Luke?
I was just going to quickly answer Mo with publish /0. The only thing kind of gross about publish is there must be a track. So you can't use it for just routing table. You have to send something. It could be a dummy track. Like it could be like publish forward =0, track =noop or something. But I kind of like how publish namespace, again, is just the routing table. Like you can route a namespace to me. There's no associated track. You don't know anything about tracks.
Okay, Ian.
Yeah, thanks everyone for motivating the continued existence of publish namespace by itself. I think everything you mentioned are totally valid, totally reasonable, and I agree that just trying to shove everything down the like publish, forward =0 path is like awkward at best and just like weird. But I think it also argues for the fact that the published namespaces or the messages you get in response to a subscribed namespace that indicate the existence of a namespace are a very different type of message than the published namespaces you get by themselves. And I think they need a different name. And I would also like to nuke params on them and just make them data and like make them simpler and make them more compact. And so I guess that would be my strong takeaway is like these things are different enough in how they're used and different enough, especially in their state management, right? Because that's kind of how one of the ways we got into this conversation is like this whole thing is creating kind of a state management nightmare, but like, we're sort of creating it for ourselves because we've tried to generalize something that maybe is being used in 2 fairly different ways. Being my thought. So.
I think the only param in a published namespace today is off. Someone can correct me if I'm missing one, but I don't.
But the point is there are params in there, and that's like.
Yeah, there's a whole string. We can add. I mean, in theory, we can add any, but the only one we've defined is off. And I think someone's already questioned, like, why the heck is off here?
Like, I think we'd like to
subscribe namespace response path.
Yeah, I'd rather keep it simpler, not more complex. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. One thing I just want to make sure, when we were talking about like this discovery message and we're getting tracks, you need to also know when they go away, right? So, because that's one of the functions. Subscribe namespace today will give you published namespace and also published namespace done. So I think people still want to retain that functionality in terms of like the discovery, like here are the things that exist, here are new things, and here are things that are being removed or have gone away.
I think if a publisher ceases to publish on a set of namespace for whatever reason, and he lets the network know about it, and it's good, then I think for subscribers it's good to know about it. If not, they keep coming back. It's waste of resources in either way. So.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That's my understanding as well. I think I have an idea enough that I could write APR that does what we've discussed here, and people could review it and see if we have the same idea in mind. I don't know if anybody else wants any more thoughts on what to do here before we have actual text to talk about. In which case, Martin Duke.
All right, so if you reach a stopping point here, I would like to talk briefly about the hackathon in 2 weeks. So as I understand it, we will see a draft 15 no later than 5 p.m. East Pacific today. I'm guessing by 5 p.m. Pacific, given your other engagements. So it's a quite extensive diff. We have ALPN version negotiation. We have request OK, request error. We have all the subscribe fields almost all the subscribe fields being parameterized. I would like to open the floor for people that think we should make draft 15 an interop target for the hackathon or stick on draft 14. And like as an individual, I will say I will not have draft 15 ready for 2 weeks from now. Colin.
Let me put a +1 on. We should stay on 14. I think we should do 14 as the interop target. I think there's too much change in 15. That's my take. But like,
okay. Mike in the queue says. Roger. Mike says in the queue he would also like some more time on draft 14. Alan.
I guess my question is, will anybody be bringing an attempt at draft 15? If the answer is no, we may not spend any time on it in the next 2 weeks, but we were otherwise planning to work on it. All
right, Luke says he's going to implement 14 compatibility today. All right, so that's a vote for 14. Giovanni?
The 15 is mostly the ALPN, or there's more things in there?
So it is ALPN, introduces the request OK and request error messages. All the subscribe field, most of the subscribe fields are parameterized now. I don't think there's any other big wire changes, but maybe I'm forgetting one.
So those sound non-trivial.
I think it's just a lot of code churn. I don't think there's any giant like conceptual changes, but other than maybe ALPN.
Right. That seems like a good place to be. The ALPN seems like a mark in the sand.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So I don't hear anyone champing at the bit to do draft 15 in 2 weeks. Alan.
I'm happy to defer it because I think it would also be a little bit of a stretch, although I think we may still go for it. So if anybody wants to try to go for 15 or wants to negotiate a subset of 15 that they want to try, do you want to just try ALPN 14 or some other subset in Montreal? That's interesting to us. Also, I would ask that we schedule a virtual hackathon before the end of the year on 15, because I don't want to wait until Boulder before people crack this open, because time marches on. We've got issues to close, and the gap's only going to get wider from 14 to whatever. So
that's noted. Alan, do you because you're not doing enough for this working group, do you want to find a date that works for everyone on the hackathon? Or do you really want me to find somebody else? I mean, I can find somebody else.
Well, I mean, we're also holidays and people's schedules are going to be a major. I mean, probably I would say like.
Actually, let me retract that immediately. Mike English, as Commander in Chief of Hackathon, like, can you find a date late in the year to do a virtual hackathon on draft 15, like December-ish?
Sure. I will try and find a date.
Okay. Giovanni, please make sure that's noted in the minutes. All right. I maybe that's all we needed. Okay. So I think the upshot for Montreal is that if you show up with draft 14, you will likely have interlocutors. If you want to do 15, maybe Meta will be able to help you out. If you want to do ALPN 14, like at least Meta will do it. I actually might be able to do that. Like if that's the one thing I'm trying to do in 15, that might be achievable. So maybe I'll do that. Although, yeah, okay. So that's the status of things. Does anyone have any questions about what I just said?
Yes. What did you just say? What did
okay. That's a good question.
Like just 3 or 4 words.
Okay. Draft 14, if you show up with pure draft 14, you are likely to find people to interop with. If you show up in draft 15, you might have Meta, but maybe not. If you want to do draft 14, I'm sorry, this is way more than a few words, but I hear you typing, which is great. Thank you. Are you caught up?
Yeah, more or less. I get the gist of what you're saying. So.
Okay. Well, and the third bullet point was that if you draft 14 with ALPN, okay. Let me back up. In order of like likelihood of having people to interop with, pure draft 14 with ALPN, draft 15. That is kind of the descending likelihood of having people to interop with. So you should prioritize. Number one, you should clean up 14. Number two, if you can add ALPN, has high likelihood of success. And then 15, good luck to you. All right. Any other questions about what I just said, including what did you just say?
I'm good.
All right. All right, we got 20 minutes left. Alan, can you use that productively?
I was going to maybe just throw up 1/2 issues. Do I need to
go for it.
Stop screen share and request it so I can present from a tab instead of the. So there we go. Nope. What happened? Some chair needs to click a button somewhere. There we go. Okay. So we have 2 related issues. This is the more recent of them that said we should limit reason phrases and MOQ implementation to only things you can really log safely, which is code points 20 through 70, like low bit ASCII. There's this related issue, which is about namespaces and names, which are, I'm pretty sure that we don't want to restrict those to those can be any byte, as far as I understand. So I think my question is, do people want to limit some of these parameters like this one to, let's start there, to a subset? Let me find the queue. Okay, Cullen.
Yeah. So, okay. Sort of a few things. So there's 2 sort of related things here about the namespaces, and then more general. Okay. So with the namespaces, obviously we want to be able to support binary in them, and obviously they've got to be escaped in some way in log files so they're safe. Now, the question is, and by the way, we need a way to represent them in all of our specs and drafts and examples as well that we've never really had a pretty, like we all use, sometimes they're slashes and they look like HTTP URLs, sometimes they're like brackets and commas, like it's confusing to users. So I think it would be nice if we picked a way to represent the tuples of namespaces and track names. The files draft proposes a way to do that, which is basically put dots between them. It tries to do them in a file safe character set. I can explain why that way was done there. But the issue is I think we ought to pick a consistent way of doing this, particularly for logging. And the reason it's so important in logging is you have all kinds of security products trying to review the logs. And if every single MOQ thing puts it in the logs in a different form, it makes it harder for those products. So I think there is an advantage for us defining a recommended, obviously people do what people do, right? But way of formatting the namespace track name sort of tuple, okay? So that's one part of it. Now the next part of it is we have other things that are going to land into log files like reason codes and things like that, right? Now, these things are, meant to be read by operators, those types of things. And I think that, you know, saying how to do those in a safe way versus me sending, you know, turn your console green and print backwards, which is a normal hack we've seen done on, you know, it's one of the fuzzing, standard fuzzing attacks that lots of software fails. Like we can just eliminate this whole foot gun by restricting this stuff if there's no reason to restrict it. I'm not proposing in the slightest we'd restrict namespaces to not have binary. They're binary, that's fine. For there, I'm just proposing we have a consistent way of escaping them when we print them into a log file or make pretty printing them in a safe way. That's all, right? So if we can get agreement on that, then we could dig into the discussing of what was the way to do that, which is a little bit of a bite-shetty topic. But, you know, so does that work for people?
So I think I understand what you're saying. The question I raised here, which is sort of like, since we have to have a standard way of escaping non-safe stuff already for track names, because we know that they are going to not be restricted to this subset of a character set, why do we need an additional restriction and instead just tell people you've got to run your same escaper on these strings as well before you log them?
I mean, sure, fair enough, but you're probably not going to want to escape them the same way. For example, spaces, you probably want to, if you have a space in a log name, you probably want to, you know, escape. You might want to deal with that in a different way. I mean, generally you're trying to drop the namespace thing into some sort of like safe, coherent sort of namespace type thing. Might be a little bit different than, so you might escape some of the characters differently than just the 20 through 7E type approach. I mean, that still allows, you know, I mean, that's all non-white space characters, right? I mean, basically all it's saying is block the white space characters. So I don't know. I mean, there's always this urge of people who want to be like, well, you know, what, I mean, I think this is a question is like, you know, if we want to put kanji in our reason codes, then this obviously is not the right thing to do. And we need to make that choice. That's the choice we need to decide, right?
Yeah,
and I'm happy
clear,
either way. I don't care what it is, but to put kanji in it requires us to do all the internationalization stuff. You either do it or don't do it. There's no halfway.
I mean, I feel like every reason phrase has to have a poop emoji. That maybe is a requirement I'm willing to specify. So
somebody send a PR, I'll be thumbs up on it. Yeah. Okay, sorry. I'll stop.
Okay.
Mike probably has comments.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, regarding internationalization, I feel like we probably should do that. But where that happens and whose responsibility it is I guess my main question. So also for practical reasons, I think a lot of applications will end up using URLs at some level of the stack, and mapping between those and namespaces and track names and other data that we have in the MOQ transport spec, open-ended, you know, arrays of bytes. But do we want to explicitly call that out as a responsibility of streaming formats to define that mapping between more restrictive subsets and the more open-ended, capabilities of the underlying transport. And like when things don't follow the rules, where should they break? I guess are my questions. And regarding this particular issue, I agree that if we have to have an answer for escaping things in one place, like why not apply it everywhere? So maybe we just need to find an answer that works for both.
My main interest is closing issues. So I am like, if it was I could write in like MOQ implementation and any other like random string parameters like have to be in this restricted character set and I could close this issue, I would be so happy. So I don't want to sit here and argue about it unless somebody has a reason why they really want something else or they really think we shouldn't be specifying that. Like, let's do it. And I think the suggestion to have like a normalized way, which is tracked in the other issue, 1099, sounds like a great idea. I don't even care what it looks like. Somebody else write the PR and I'll stamp it. Colin.
Look, I'm happy to write a PR for the normalized way of doing the track names, whatever. I'll do that, no problem. It seems bad. On the reason code stuff, on the general reason code stuff, I mean, I would just, like, most other protocols do not support internationalization in the things that were meant for diagnostics and running of the system. Like those types of reason code type things that are not meant to be displayed to end users. Like reason codes were never meant to be displayed to end users, my understanding. If they are, then we have to definitely add internationalization. So I think that somebody should just come up with the use case here of whether we need internationalization in reason codes or not. And once they've done that, I think we can then set up the workflow that needs to be done to help get them there, right? And I think that's the only other things that we have, right? It's just reason codes and the names. Is there anything else we need to worry about this with?
Let's see. Auth strings are blobs. Am I missing? I feel like I'm missing another parameter, setup parameter that's a string, but somebody else can.
There's the URL of the path name or
path and authority are the other two.
Right. And how to internationalize those is already, well, let's check that. Okay. I'll make a note to check that. I mean, path's clear, authority less clear, maybe.
I mean, I think the point about URLs, both those are, I think, even in our spec defined to come from a URL. So
right, which has a well-defined internationalization scheme already, right? So it's dealt with. It's not our problem.
Okay. But although maybe we need to say something about it.
Right. But I think I would put out as, I mean, I think we should move reason codes altogether. It's my point of view. But I will put out like if anybody thinks that we should have internationalization of reason codes, let's talk about that. And otherwise, let's not do internationalization of them like most other protocols. So that would be my proposal.
I just want to make sure, did Mike just say that he wanted internationalization of reason codes or no?
And Mike did say that. Jump in here, Mike. Come on. Get on the, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I obviously don't feel strong about it. Whatever.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to continue in kind of the Anglo-centric ASCII world. Like it would be nice if we like did the right thing and had support for internationalization. I don't have a great grasp of how much effort that is and how much of that we can factor out to be somebody else's problem. But restricting it just to simplify things seems a little like short-sighted.
Well, I mean, with anything to do with absolutely anything to do with something that's displayed to an end user, 100% agree with you. Okay, just to be clear. But on what goes in a reason phrase, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just sort of, it's undefined what goes in them and it's undefined what you're supposed to do with them, right? Like that's the heart of this, right?
I
mean, maybe we could look at what HTTP did as a model, something else. I don't know.
I was just going to say HTTP is a poop emoji show because it wasn't well defined. And for example, user agent is a great example, right? Because MOQ implementation is meant to imitate user agent. So is user agent header allowed to have characters outside this range in it? It's a great question. If you go and read the specs, it essentially comes down, it's sort of like, probably not. And what should you do if you get one? Like, well, not sure. And we Meta have had a very strict interpretation of what you're allowed to stick there. But then we see people construct, they construct a user agent on the fly. They grab some data out of some SIM card and stick it in there. And all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. So we should just be crisp about what we want, what we expect here. I feel like I'm not sure if we're making progress on this issue, though. I sort of hear Colin saying one thing and Mike saying another.
I'm not arguing strongly from my point of view. If somebody else wants to do a PR that says how to do this, whatever, I'll even give them a little pointers in the direction or whatever. I don't think anyone's. The interoperability level of implementation of internationalization in reason codes is good luck with that. But I don't care what the spec says. I'm not standing in the way.
Victor made a comment in the chat. We should copy RFC 9000 language. I believe that's what we did. I think that's what they're now. Luke?
And I'm just going to say, don't put unsanitized user content in logs in general. You should always sanitize that. And maybe that could be in the draft.
Okay. Somebody help me close this issue, please. Then you guys can all go. Someone tell me what to write. I can just say don't put.
Is there just a question for XADs, ADs, whatever? Is there any sort of general guidance we have on which things, whether this type of thing should be internationalized or not? Because I thought the guidance was not, but I don't know if it says that. I don't know. Does anyone have any advice from the rest of the IETF on this topic?
I can't think of one offhand. I can do a little searching and get back.
I just heard that we could assign this issue to Mike Bishop. That may be bold. I think I think my inclination would be to not restrict the set, but just have language that says you better sanitize. I think we're going to have the language for 1099, which says before you log any of this, you should run this algorithm on it. And maybe we should do the same for, when that's done, it can also say that about this string, and that would at least mitigate most of the problem. Unless, I don't know, can people live with that, Martin?
Yeah, so I would imagine that people would log namespaces. So yes, we need to sanitize, but if we're going to have sanitize, it seems like the namespace stuff needs to be a little broader, and than what we strictly need for reasoning codes. But I would hate to have two separate sanitation routines for the reasoning codes and the namespaces. So maybe this is a vote for Mike's thing, which is let's just internationalize everything and be done with it. And it sounds like I don't hear anyone really pushing back hard against that. And I guess the question is just, do we know how to write that? And I think Colin said he was going to mail something, and I guess Mike is going to look up whatever the IETF guidance is.
I'm not willing to do internationalization for this. I will write the stuff on how to print I will do the equivalent of how we print the namespace and track name into URL. I'll make a PR for that people can look at and decide what they want. But the how to internationalize this is going to require you to describe how you're going to compare strings, and that is where things go sideways. And I'm not volunteering to do that part, but I don't care if someone does that part. I'm not objecting to it. I just don't want to do it.
Right. So I mean, I guess isn't there an internationalization director or something?
Yes, there is.
Okay, maybe we can ask them for help.
That's a good idea.
I'll take that action item. I'll find out who that is and send an email, and maybe there's some guidelines that somebody can read and then write a PR.
Be ready for follow-up questions on the internationalization.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna say that you're not fixing the issue even by doing internationalization. Like your logging could be JSON based. You still have to treat it like as a different encoding than what you're logging. You're still gonna have to escape things or sanitize things.
Yeah, no. So like clearly there needs to, like, part of the, whether in a separate PR or in this PR or whatever, there has to be something that says like, do not log stuff without sanitizing it.
I don't assume an encoding, right? I think that's probably the safest thing.
Yes, I mean, I think we have. I think we agree that at least some strings in this protocol, probably the namespaces, need to be internationalized, or really ought to be internationalized. And the point I was making is let's just have one like sanitized routine instead of like one for reason codes and one for namespaces. As an individual, I would say that as an implementer, but maybe like somebody really hates internationalized reason phrases, and I'm not going to lie down on the road over it.
Colin.
Sorry. I mean, just to be clear, I strongly have argued from the very beginning that MOQ should not internationalize the namespaces or the track names. Okay, and an application like lock sitting on top of that can definitely do that, no problem about it. But we're just binary blobs at this level for those ones. That does mean they have to be escaped when they're blocked. We have to have a common way of printing them, which PR I sort of agree. But that's, so I don't want to put internationalization of those in this spec, right? Like that I feel very strongly.
Okay, well that's all right. So I'm sorry, I misunderstood where we were then. Okay, so does anyone disagree that namespaces and names are binary blobs at the MOQ level? Okay. Nevertheless, it still does need to be sent. So maybe there's a small PR here that
I'll get a small PR that's about how to put those into a common form that is safe for logging, among other things. Okay. And then we have a broader question, which is, do we want to say anything about how to sanitize reason codes when they're logged?
Okay.
And that also would be easy. I mean, whatever. That's the one I'm hesitant on. If we want to internationalize reason codes, that's a chunk of work, and people have to decide whether they want to do that or not.
I got you. Okay. So I withdraw my comment about namespaces and reason codes reason phrases being the same, because if it's just a binary blob, there's no standardization. Exactly. Okay. So thank you, Colin, for agreeing to write a narrow PR for namespaces and names. Thanks.
Which does not close all of Alan's issues, but well,
agreed. But it's a major contribution.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. I don't want to talk about this anymore. We only got 2 minutes back to finish our draft deadline stuff. You want to wrap us up, chairs?
Sure. Thank you, Alan, and thank you to all of us for your discussion today. Thank you, Giovanni, for taking notes. I know it's not fun, and we will see you all in Montreal in 2 weeks. Remember all the deadlines that they're on the chair slides if you forgot them. There's a bunch of stuff due today. Make sure you get your things in if you want agenda time in Montreal in particular. Okay. See you later.
Thank you.